women, young people, and how they're positioning themselves for the forthcoming general elections. We've got Hajia Omobolale Raji, who is here, a member of SDP. Thank you for coming on this morning.
Thank you very much.
And then on the far left, we've got Mr. Honorable Diabush Alibioshu, a member of the APC. Thank you for coming on today again.
Thank you for having me.
Let me start with you, Hajia. I mean, looking at the stats here, where Nigeria is reported to have about 49.3% of this population is made up of women. And that's the stats according to the World Bank only last year. And one wonders, that's a significant figure to determine what transpires in the scheme of things in politics. But after that, we'll have this not too young to run lower. So looking at both components, do you think that women this time, not just in your party, but across parties, are they leveraging on this to determine what could likely happen in the elections?
Thank you for having me. SDP party is a party that encourages women. Let me let you know and the nation to know that in SDP is a party that women and the youth has to look up onto. We welcome everybody on board. SDP is the only party that is not collecting concession funds fee from women and youth. For the expression of interest, because SDP have the interest of women and youth at heart, we are only collecting half of the money for expression fee. And SDP party has elaborate programs for the youth. You know, in the past, women have never been given positions. Very few women. Women this time around should come out. Be free to come out and be bold, because SDP has a platform for the women and the youth in this country. Is it
a good idea for women to limit themselves to a particular party, thinking they can achieve their aspirations there?
It's not. But I can tell you the reason why. You know, in the past, many parties have not given the women the chance to run. The high price for forms, and so many other things. But this time around, SDP is telling the women in this country, they are telling the youth in this country to come and not to shy away.
But SDP is part of the coalition, aren't they?
But definitely we are.
So that means that their interests will be subsumed under the coalition?
Definitely. We are all coming.
Does that make them stronger or weaker?
It makes us stronger, and we are coming much stronger than you ever think.
Because I'm wondering, just recently in Abuja, a non-government organization came out with this idea and went on the street to campaign, saying that they wanted 30% of our elective positions to go to the youth and for women. I'm wondering how they can achieve that, considering the complexity of the electoral process and politicking and defections and non-defections here and there. What role do you think the women can do? Is there a particular statement that women can make that will stamp that authority, that women are indeed part of this process and can go through? Women don't have the money.
Thank you very much. For example, I am a woman, and I'm a stalwart in SDP, and I'm also a chairperson in SDP. This wouldn't have come without the support, not only from women, but men in my party and my leaders. Our leaders in SDP believe in women. We believe in the youth. And we know women can make greater parts and make greater impacts in our society and the nation at large. When we come to talk about the money aspect, that is why SDP has considered we women and the youth by slashing the price of each nomination forms, expression of interest, and the concession fee to half price. So to other parties, you can imagine the amount of money other parties are charging. Where on earth can we get that money from?
Do you support that the women and the youth should constitute 30% of elective positions in Nigeria?
If possible, more than 30%.
But how will you achieve that?
We can achieve that by propaganda, by using the media to propagate the gospel of what SDP has in for the women and what SDP has in for the youth.
Okay. From the pictures so far, from all that you've seen and heard, do you think there's a chance for women to gain more ground?
Absolutely, but how do they go about it is the most important thing. In the past, we've heard a lot of talks about Lasange's song. He said, "You can't dash me my property, you can't dash me human rights." The same thing applies here. What applies to the man applies to the woman and must apply to young people. I don't like to use the word youth. Now, how does this happen? How does this take place? Not by demanding for it, just demanding for it verbally, or by having it go through a certain process. Quickly, I would say one thing is we have the umpire in INEC. Hajra threw up something about high cost of nomination forms and things like that. The INEC rules states that no political party in Nigeria must impose exorbitant rates on aspirants based on gender, wealth, and so on. Paragraph 3 says that they can come on and tell the parties what they think the pricing should be. So they have a role to play as umpires. That's on one hand. On the other hand, now, electioneering process, campaigning process is like I would explain it as something like a negotiation between the voters and those who are being voted for. If you're able to communicate with those people, you threw up a statistic now saying that 49% of the World Bank threw up something, 49% of the population are women. There's another stat that says that 67 or 60-something% of voters are young people. When you merge that together, they shouldn't be asking, they shouldn't be demanding, they should be stating, how do you mean? Women, I've heard about even money playing a role, but how do you eliminate this? By the time women listen to what you have to offer them, they say the easiest way to a man's heart is through his food. The easiest way to a parent's heart is through the child. There's a serious issue with, I was reading up about dyslexia the other day, where it said a UNICEF statistics said that out of 405 studies carried out, 109 students at the primary level were found to be dyslexic. What is dyslexia? In Nigeria, we refer to them as olodos, in quotes. No, they're not olodos. It's a neurological function, which means that their brains are wired differently. Now, what do you think is responsible for a lot of young people out there who are now engaged in the use of tramadol, in codeine, and things like that? This is a whole generation that is being put at risk. By the time you're able to let them know that, listen, we're going to be profiling this solution. I represented Koshofe at the House of Reps for a while. Only a couple of years ago, I found out that Koshofe has the highest number of rape cases in Lagos. How do we solve that? Any parents, any sensible, anybody would rather vote for who would protect their children, policies that would protect their children over demanding for money as being propagated. The stats are there at LASU. I remember you're looking at a lot of cases of cultism. What do you think is responsible for this? Every parent wants to protect their children. And of the parents, you find out that a lot more women play that motherly role than the man. So when you tell them on how you plan on protecting their kids, what led them, I'll paint to cultism in the first place. I'll paint a quick picture for you to hear now in class. The teachers like the brightest students. They hit them on one side. The dyslexics, because if the statistic says 1 in 3, it means if you have 25 pupils or 24 pupils in a class, in a particular class, 8 students will deal with dyslexia. That's just dyslexia. There's dyscalculia, there are a lot of other special needs. That isn't there. If you get either a governor who is particular about that, a policymaker or policymakers, we've heard talks about the budget on education. And we've heard a lot of complaints. We've seen a lot of comparison between the Nigerian budget and the Ghanaian budget talking about 180 million, and the population of Ghana saying that more was spent on the budget on education compared to that of which we have here in Nigeria.